Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to CarMiZa Trunk Details Part 11. We're moving right along. So at this point, we're going to work on getting the bottom on the one Zapco. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, on the last video, if you recall, when I mounted the main plate into the car, I kind of screwed up. I wasn't paying attention and I had these end caps reversed and it ended up being fine. Not a big deal, but I found in doing so that I was felt like I was slipping and getting a little sloppy. So I'm really going to try to step up the precision with what I'm doing here. And this is really critical. This is a really important part. So here's what we're doing. To begin, I've got what I believe to be a good straight edge, and I'm going to use this to butt the amplifier pieces against to get them all on a proper straight line. But to make sure it's properly straight, I've got my piece of aluminum that was cut by the metal supply place. They use a giant shear, which has a very precise straight edge, straighter than anything I have. So just to be safe, I put this up against here and I made sure that everything is, there's no rocking back and forth. So this is my reference edge at this point. So now at this point, I'll take the amplifiers and I'll push those all up against that edge. Okay, so once I had the amplifier pieces up against this rail, I also took this clamp and very gently, I didn't go too tight and over torque it, but just enough to be able to pull everything together. And again, the most important thing right now is that this line right here, where these pieces meet up, is as close as possible. And that is the case, right? And again, there's some variation. You can see like a nasty looking gap there because of the difference in the height on these pieces, but that's not important right now. I also went through and added just some wood screws into each of the pieces to hold them in place. So now I can take that clamp out, and now I've got everything solid and straight, and I can start working on the bottom. Okay, now that I have everything screwed down, just want to show this too. I can take this straight edge, put it against there, and there's no rocking. It's tight there, we're touching. So now I know for certain that the amplifiers are straight. Okay, here's another kind of a confirmation that everything is in a straight line. I'm taking that same piece of aluminum stock that will serve as the raw material for the bottom, and I've got it laid in there. And when I had this cut, I had it cut slightly oversized and figured I can always trim it down, but I can't add to it. And so it fits really nicely in there. It's slightly bigger than I would want it for a final piece because of paint and everything. But I will be cutting this with a router after I make my template. Also, if you notice, the length is slightly longer than I need, which allows for the kerf for the cut on the jigsaw, and also for any kind of cleanup that I need to do. So now that I know this is good, I'm going to move on to beginning the MDF template. Okay, not working on the MDF template. Instead, I went on a little bit of a trip earlier today and decided to have the amplifiers and the heat sinks spacers media blasted. I went to State 48 Mobile Blasting. The guy's name is Corey. He's in Queen Creek, Arizona. If you need any media blasting, he does an awesome job. And he went through and did the blasting on the amplifiers and again the spacers. This is what's called an anchor profile. It's very specific. If you look at it, it looks like it's painted. And it looks like it has more texture than it does. It's an extremely light texture. And the objective there is you don't want it perfectly glass smooth if you're going to be painting. And that's exactly what I'll be doing with the amplifier. So this is effectively properly prepped for painting. Again, you can see even the aluminum spacers, everything just kind of blends together now. And what I'm going to do next, the next part of the video is you're going to see Corey doing his work. We're going to go on a field trip and you get to see his work. So awesome job. And now you're starting to be able to tell those are just sitting there too. I still haven't screwed it down, but now you can tell where, even from back here, if you were a couple feet away, it's tough to tell that's not an entire giant amplifier. So looking pretty cool. So here is Corey doing his work. All right, we're here with Corey with State 48 Plastic. That's his rig, quite a setup. And we're gonna do a test piece here. He's got one of the links. We're gonna do a test pass on this and see how it goes. Stand by. All right, there we go. Looks like it's painted. That's an anchor profile. Wow, that is nuts. But it's not like rough, but it's got, like you say, that's what we need for the paint to adhere, correct?
Yeah, that's the bonding.
Okay, awesome. All right, test pass is good. Now we're gonna get to the amps. Got a border cycle frame being done at the same time. That as a backdrop. There we go. Swapping out, going to a different tip because the amps have got white powder coating. The test link only was anodized, I think, so it came off quite a bit easier. So we'll go ahead and get this going. Reloading the abrasive, that's it. And it's glass, you said? All right, very cool. All right, let's take a quick look as Corey is reloading the machine. see the progress so far. You can see where the white powder coating, I think whatever it was, is still there, but in this area it's good. And it's got a very slight texture, which is really going to be great for the paint to adhere.
That's crazy.
All right, so we got 1 amp done, looking awesome. Anchor profile, said. So it's got just a very, very slight texture, which will allow the paint to adhere. So that's looking awesome, and that's what the other one looks like, just hitting a little bit. We're gonna do the second one now. All right, we found a couple little tiny spots on the 1 amp. Just gonna go in and clean that up. And that one should be good. As you can see, we have the links there too. Let me get no short. Okay, we're back from Corey's, and it's later that day. And once again, as you can see, everything came out beautiful. Love the work he did. It took about an hour or so to do all the work. He normally does mobile, but I'm not that far from him, and for little jobs like this. He actually came over to the house to look at it with probably 2 hours notice. So again, State 48 mobile blasting. Corey does great work, awesome service. So if you're in the area and you need something done, check him out. Now, going on, and kind of the reason I had the blasting done was because I hit a situation that arose, and I kind of, in order to be able to solve it, I wanted to have the amplifier stripped first. I did try a little Fisher Price, aka Harbor Freight, kind of a media blaster gun that was junk, and I decided to have, bring in a professional, right? So that was Corey. All right, so here's a situation I found that I want to cure now. It's got to be fixed at some point, and I figure it would be better to do it before I start doing the bottom. Again, I want to really get back to being kind of precision with this build. I felt like I got sloppy on some of the last stuff. All right, so here is what we have. If you notice, fin alignment here is beautiful, right? That looks great. Everything's good there. This seam as well looks great. This looks really good. Again, these are just sitting here. So if I was to have these in the car, torque down, they'd be awesome. This seam right here is the one that's nasty. And I figured out why. Again, plywood's not perfect. You can't hear that, but this amplifier is, you see it right there, see that? It's rocking back and forth. The top of the amplifier is not straight and therefore not flat. So that's why I'm getting this irregularity, and it's basically jacking up, especially this seam. This seam, again, is good because this amp, if I'm rocking on it, there is no rock. It's dead flat to the plywood. Again, the plywood's really close, but it's not perfectly flat. Notice how good this seam is right here, but this one's a hot mess, right? So, and on this opposite end, it's very, very good. Okay, so if I was to hold that together, you can see kind of disappears. Same thing here. Again, if I was to hold it together, everything looks very good. So what I have is on the top of this amplifier in this section, it's got a high spot. And when Zapco manufactured this, they weren't thinking that people were going to mount it the way I was going to mount it. So, and I feel like I'm throwing specs around a lot, like measurements, maybe too much, but we'll call it a whisker. It's a whisker off, guys, and that's allowing me to have this play to rock it back and forth. So how do I fix this? Because if I start it and it doesn't come out right, I've got big issues. What I'm going to do is bring this into my kitchen where I have checked the granite on the countertop, and it is perfectly flat. I've used that reference straight edge, and it is super flat. So I'm going to line the amplifiers up on the kitchen counter, wait for the wife to go run some errands so she doesn't have to deal with that. And then I am going to set up a sanding block and sand the top, this side of the amplifier so that it does not rock back and forth. There is a little piece of wood in here. That's not the issue. Again, you can see where the amplifier definitely, I don't know if, who knows, maybe it was dropped at one point. Anything may have happened. Or again, maybe it's just, that's an acceptable tolerance from Zapco, because normally there's, legs on this side, the amp's upside down the way it is right now, and that's the way it gets mounted. So let's go ahead and work on that and get it perfectly flat, get everything good and lined up here. That's going to happen before I start working on the template to build the bottom. All right, one other quick thing I want to show you. My father's not big into doing video on a phone. I'm grateful and fortunate that he's willing and able to help out do all of this work on the Zebrawood. So I just want to share some pictures here. Here you can see he's working on getting the angle correct for you'll see this later, those are little wedges that hold the fuse block. And those are going to be made of Zebrawood, so he's just using that just to get his angles correct. A few other quick pictures here. This is just a dry run to make sure that's not the screw, but that's basically the angle. You can see here too where he did a test drill for the tiptoes for the Milberts. So again, I'll just scrap stock that he's practicing on. That's a better shot of that. And then this is going to be, I think it's a 53 millimeter hole. I sent him the Forstner bit. And it is the whole size for if you recall, the analog voltage gauge that I showed. But when I opened the email, the pictures popped up, and this is the first picture I saw. Almost gave me a heart attack. I thought he put the wrong hole in the wrong place. I thought that was the finished wood. But if you notice, the title of his email, try before you buy, basically just showing me that he's doing some testing. So all is good. I'm going to do some final verifications for him, and then tomorrow he's going to be doing a bunch of the drilling of the hole. So that is coming along quite nicely. So we should be seeing more updates on the Zebrawood, but again, he's taking his time, much like I am, and that's kind of where I got a lot of this precision. So quick update on that. Okay, welcome to my kitchen, our kitchen. All right, so here's once again what I've done using this straight edge. You definitely won't be able to see this on camera, but I just used this to verify that this edge is really good and flat. Again, you wouldn't be able to see it, but trust me, it is. Now I'll get the one Zapco and get it lined up. Okay, so here's the amp on the kitchen counter, and as I suspected, just confirming, if I take this amp, move it back and forth, I have no rocking. You notice really good, like virtually perfect seam there. Same thing here, just as we saw in the garage. Again, this is just sitting here, but no rocking. But check this out. That's the problem. That's why I can't get this amplifier to line up properly with the fin. See it moving there? So I've determined that, again, very tough to see, but it's this spot right here is the high spot. So I'll go ahead and sand that down very carefully and then bring it back in and let's see how it fits. All right, back out in the garage, needed to figure out a way to sand just that one high spot. It turns out I checked it, it's the entire length of the amplifier. It's just this one rib is the culprit. So, made a sanding stick, double-sided tape, some 60 grit sandpaper, and then I'll just use this. Got my indicator marks there so I know kind of end to end. And I will gently sand this, bring it back in the house and check it. And can always sand more, but you can't sand less. So I'll really take my time here. Okay, you can barely see it. Again, probably won't show up on camera. But you can barely see where I sanded. Now if we check it, it's still there, but it's better. All right, keep going with it. Now you can see better out here in this light. Hopefully you guys can see this on camera. But notice just this one piece is a little bit shinier. All right, let's go see if we're still rocking. More progress. Super close now. A little bit more. Okay, once again, probably kind of tough to see or hear on camera, but that's just me pushing it too far, but I think we're good. All right, so now I'm gonna line everything up to see what it looks like, pushing all the fins together. Let's take a look. All right, I just wanna show this real quick too. So I've got these now back to kind of where I was, right? When I told you I was gonna work on the template. Got them screwed back down. One interesting thing I wanna show too, so I put this straight edge against here. This is the edge that'll be kind of, you know, right there that you're going to see, right? There is a front and a back, if you will. So I went ahead and got these all lined up really nice. I've got this straight edge kind of up against the groove where the bottom's going to go. You can see all the seams are like very accurate, right? I put this piece in. There's no rocking. It's right up against there. It's not, you know, flopping back and forth. But check out these. So I'm intentionally going to leave this. See where this is sticking up just a touch? This seam looks perfect, but this one is off just a little tiny. Well, I guess it's pretty close. And this one is good too. So, but look at the deviation there. So there was a little bit of play when they machined these. So when I do the bottom, that's part of the reason I'm doing a template. I will build at about a 1/16 of an inch larger than it needs to be, just to, you know, allow a little teeny tiny bit of play in there. I will be so this is what, obviously now you can see at this point, this is what the bottom will screw into. These will be threaded. And there'll be flathead countersinks in the bottom. So there's not a ton of play in terms of, you know, the way it's going to mount, but I need to make the piece slightly bigger to be able to allow for things like that. So, all right, just thought I'd show that real quick. Sorry, one last thing before making the template for the bottom. This is the piece, again, that will be the bottom. That's kind of the main stock for it. But now with this in, this fits much better. It's straighter. I don't have to fight it to get it in there. Again, I'm gonna trim this down just a whisker. But now you can see everything is lined up really nice. So, all right, onto the template. All right, you might know me by now. Decided to do plexiglass as a template, especially because this piece is pretty tricky the way it's laid out. So I've got the Sony components kind of representing there. And I've got a piece of plexi, thin plexi right in here. Works great for making these templates. And here's kind of the criteria. So on this end, again, the bottom's going to be in 3 pieces. One kind of underneath this changer, one underneath the P1 and X1, one underneath the third changer. This allows for serviceability, so I don't need to take the entire thing, you know, this entire rack out to be able to, you know, fix an issue with a P1, let's say. So on this end, no problem at all. I can do, you know, a couple, 2 or maybe even 3 bolts, thread them right in here, good to go, no problem. I've also put the end cap on the amp to kind of capture the very end, right? Here, these 2 situations here, these 2 areas are an issue. Here's my criteria. I want to have the bolts in the center here. I don't want to have them off to either side, because as I go to put a tool in there, I don't want to scratch. These are going to be gold plated. The changers are perfect. They're pristine, so I don't want to scratch anything. So I'm going to need to make sure that the holes go down the center of this bracket that I built. I could have done 2 brackets and, you know, done them side by side, but when Earl did this, or originally, this design, again, going back to this picture, you can see that there was, I'm guessing, about 1 inch gap, it looks like, between these 2. So that's where I've got the 1 inch gap. So ultimately what I think I'm going to do is cut my piece here. That's where the seam's going to be, but I'm going to do it in such a way where it's kind of curved. So let me get that laid out, see how it looks, and I'll show you in just a minute. All right, proof of concept is good with this plexi. So here's what I've got. Here's this piece. All right, goes right in there, and this will have these 2 holes here for bolts, and then I'll probably do, because I'm a crazy guy, probably 3 over here. So there's 5 bolts. This again will be 1/8 inch aluminum, the final piece, which is this piece here. So no problem at all with that being super secure. This will be the P1 X1 piece. Notice it's kind of offset, so that goes in like that. Kind of tough to see with the plexi here. Just like that. So now all 4 bolts are evenly spaced and in a straight line. That way, again, I don't, you know, run into issues scratching either device. And I've got the same thing here. And then if I were to take, this is going to be really tricky one-handed, but get the point here. Take this, flip this here, and you basically get the same thing there. So that will be the way I'm going to do these. So now let's move it over to MDF. All right, a little bit of progress here on this template. These are going to be the holes you can see. So what'll happen, again, this is my plexi, this will get cut. I'm going to cut this next, and this part will belong to this side, this part will belong to the P1 X1. So let me get that going. All right, I'm working on the MDF panels. I wanted to show something real quick. This is a really cheap Harbor Freight little tabletop table saw. Not terribly great quality, I think it's fair to say, but if you take your time, let's see if I can do this one-handed, you can get a good accurate cut. That is very acceptable. So even with cheap tools, just setting it up properly, taking your time, you can get good results. All right, let's continue on this. Okay, I've got this first piece cut, and I took this end cap off just so it's easier to work with. So if I butt that right up against there, you can see where that covers quite nicely there. This was a little tricky to cut with the jigsaw, so I just went a little bit big and then worked it in by hand, including, this is what I used for the radius. It's exactly 1 inch in diameter, 3/4 inch socket. and then put a little sandpaper on there just to get that inside edge. And it came out really, I think really good. We'll find out, because what I'm going to do is take this and use a flush trim bit and create this side. And if you notice, everything's lining up really nice here. But we'll find out exactly how accurate this curve is, because if it's not, my favorite word, perfectly symmetrical, it's not going to fit right. So let's give that a shot. All right, so I'm outside. It's dark out. I am right in the edge of the driveway here. I still have this car in there, and I'll get to that when I get to it. The other side of the garage is a total mess because we had a rattlesnake in our garage that we couldn't find. So we had to tear apart the garage to find it. Luckily, we did find it and we extracted him, but I still have to clean up the mess. So anyway, I'm outside. Also, by the way, I do have a quality DeWalt, really nice DeWalt router. So at least my router is decent. All right, so for anybody new to the channel, what I'm doing here is doing a flush trim bit cut. So this is the top piece is the piece that I just showed, where I got that hopefully really good and you know, straight, and the curve is good. Then I just took the bottom piece, is cut slightly oversized on this end, and I just used a jigsaw to get rid of most of the meat there. And then this side is good and flush. So what this will do, again, if you're not aware, run this bearing with this blade. Bearing runs along the top surface, which is my template, and the blade cuts away the bottom surface. Therefore, the two of them become exactly the same. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Okay, so good, bad, or indifferent, they are now identical copies. So let's pull it apart and see how we did. Considering I'm over here with sandpaper on a socket, I'd say that's pretty good. All right, I can live with that. So now, as you might imagine, these are the two end pieces, right? So this one slides over, becomes the end. But what is important now is that I have my reference curve. So now I'll take this middle piece and I'll cut this from here to here, right? Making sure that this is precise. Then just rough out the area I need to cut. Actually, it'll be this area that I'll need to cut, right? So this area and this area on the other piece, do the same thing. Double side tape one of, you know, each of these to that piece, and then use it as a pattern, and then I get all three pieces. I may have to actually trim down by just a whisker to allow for paint just on the ends, right? I'll square those off. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this set, and we should have this thing wrapped up here in just a moment. All right, so I told you about the rattlesnake. I'm over here working on this piece, and this guy, who is about the size of my phone, is just chilling. I think he's dead. We have an exterminator who comes and sprays stuff. So, move to Arizona, they said. Yeah, see the thing on the guy's tail? Pretty nasty. That is a giant, hairy desert scorpion. Not fun. All right, hang on. Okay, we're good. You can tell when they're dead, when their tails are out straight. It's an indication, plus their claws. And the guy was just kind of chilling. So he was sitting underneath. I still have these Bowers & Wilkins 801s that I haven't touched yet. But I had to slide one out to get that end cap on that amplifier. So I must have just kind of pushed him out from under there. But I'm still not touching him. All right, onward we go. First it was mice, then it was rattlesnake, now scorpion. So, all right. On to the progress of CarMiZa. The MDF templates are done. So here is what we got. And that's again with my, I think it's $99 with a coupon table saw. What I've done here is I put a zip tie in just for spacing and to allow for paint, things like that. And there is just a tiny bit of play in these pieces going this way, less than a 1/16. But here is basically what we have. I did zip tie ends there, and you can see, again, that cut is, I'm back to being precision. I don't think you can get much better than that using the tools that I have and kind of doing the method that I have. So I'm happy with that. And we've got the end here. So now, let me show you kind of how this will work. Let me pull that zip tie, I'll pull these zip ties. So imagine, you know, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 holes in a straight line. This will be countersunk, obviously to be aluminum. And then there will be a 1/4 20, 4 1/4 20 bolts, again, completely overkill. And those go into, move this out of the way. That's why those pieces of flat bar aluminum are in there. So that is kind of what I envisioned. So now at this point, I will take these pieces, zip tie got stuck there, and I will transfer these to the piece of aluminum I have. I've got to see, I'm a little bit concerned with the overall length of the piece of aluminum. I'm gonna basically have to, I won't have as much liberty because it's only about a 1/4 of an inch longer than this overall piece, but we'll see. If I have to, I can always get more. Not the end of the world. If I need to do like the middle piece, I can have them cut another piece. So just to give you an idea, let me take a look here. I think it's close to almost 8 o'clock. Just as a reference, it's taken me 3 hours to make 3 pieces of wood. But again, using the tools I've got and really trying to take my time and do it right, that's what it takes. Now, once I rough out the 3 pieces of aluminum, I'll double side tape these to the aluminum, and I'll flush trim the aluminum, which is going to be cool. I'd like to see in the comments below, maybe, if anybody's interested in sharing, if you ever done any machining on aluminum using woodworking tools. I hear it's not that bad. And what I'll do is I will really sneak up close with the aluminum so there's not much work for the router to do. You obviously don't want to, you know, do something like that where it's got to make the entire cut itself. So, all right, I'm going to keep going on this video. My hope was to get, man, I wanted to get this bottom in and then get the P1, X1 mounted on this plate and the 2 C1s and then get this whole thing back in the car during this video. So let's see. I feel like I'm kind of moving a little bit slow with the progress, but I'm happy with the results. That's what really matters. So, all right, we'll continue on and we'll get this transferred over to some aluminum. Before I double side tape these together, one other thing I want to show that I have to be cognizant of. These pieces 1 and 3 here are symmetrical, so it really shouldn't matter. But what I'm going to do is when I double side tape these together, I'm going to do the following. So this is number 1 face up, right? Instead of putting this like this and flush trimming it, I'm going to go like this. There's a difference. All right, and the reason being is after I flush trim this, and again, I'm just going to use this as my, obviously my template, I'm going to put a 45-degree chamfer 1/8 of an inch deep on the perimeter of this. Now, I'm not going to go into here. I'm just going to do this outside perimeter because where this goes into the amplifier, so if I show you over here, my covers are 1/8 of an inch tall, and the original covers were, I don't know, 1/16. So there's a real slight lip here. So I'm just going to put a really, really light chamfer on that. All right. So again, if I want to maintain the layout of these pieces, I need to do it such that I put the aluminum on top of my piece, flush trim, then do the chamfer on this top edge. That way this piece drops in and top is still top. All right, let's go ahead and do that. All right, not exactly fun, but it worked out okay. So here's what we got. Again, the objective here was to cut the aluminum such that it's at least as large as the MDF and there's no underhung areas, and that is the case. So, in doing so, kind of the little cheap skill saw I was using kind of vibrated a bunch on some of these because of the kerf, and it put some scratches in here. This is fine because I'm going to have to sand this anyway to prep it. I might even bring it back to the guy that did the glass bead blasting on the amps and have him do these too because of the adhesion for the paint. But again, you can see we're good. And now we'll be able to double side tape the MDF to each of the pieces of aluminum and run it through flush trim bit and get the perimeters the same. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. All right, got the pieces laid out and traced out onto the aluminum. And as I mentioned, there's not a lot of play. That's basically the free space that I have to work with. So I'm gonna have to be really careful with my jigsaw cuts, and obviously the goal here is to make sure that I don't undercut and cut any smaller than the MDF. So let's go ahead and get these cut. All right, we're all double side taped. Time to go do some routering on aluminum. See how this goes. Should be pretty cool. Okay, if you're looking to make the biggest mess possible, I suggest routering aluminum. But it works. It's not bad. It's kind of tough to focus on that. You can see there, I'll probably want to clean it up a little bit with maybe a light sandpaper. See that finish right there? But all in all, it's pretty easy to run through the machine. It's not bad to run it through a router. So a little scary at first. This is just a scrap piece, but now we'll go ahead and do all the 3 bottom pieces. Okay, here's one of the finished pieces, and much better. I figured out that on that scrap piece, I had a couple of pieces on the bottom side of the aluminum that was kind of rubbing and dragging and causing a little friction. So if you notice, again, that cut is substantially smoother. So we'll keep going. All right, 1 down and 2 to go. Came out very good. One little tip here too, if anybody is watching and maybe new to routering, you always want to be careful. If you notice, I have the direction of the bit in the table, the direction of the rotation. You always want to move your work this way into the blade. So especially with aluminum, you would want to be really careful, otherwise it's going to end up flying across the room or whatever. So all right, let's continue. I figured why not have my daughter do a little video, and I will show you guys how this routering is going. So let's give it a shot. Okay, one other quick thing I want to show you here. I was kind of going back and forth about adding a chamfer, and man, it's a hard time picking this up on video for some reason. But I did it on this test piece, and if I set it in, especially like where the seam is, here, I really like that. It's a really nice finished edge. It kind of completes it, because again, this is going to be thicker than the original amp bottom was, and I think that really just kind of finishes it off. Again, you probably won't even really see this, but it's the kind of detail I'm going for. So I'm going to do this on the rest of the pieces. Okay, the amp bottom is completed. You can see that chamfer. I think that really adds a nice little finishing touch. You can see the gaps there. Came out really, really good. Very happy with that. Again, I'm not too worried about the scratches, because I'm going to scuff this before I paint it, or again, I'll bring it back to the sandblasting guy and have him do the same finish on it. So with that, guys, this video is pretty long, and I was hoping to get further in this video. My hope was to get these mounted, which is my next step, and then also get the C1 changers and the P1 and X1 mounted. But I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. In the next video, we'll go ahead and get these mounted. Again, getting our fasteners in here, C1, X1, or the two C1s, the P1 and X1 mounted, and we'll get everything back into the car. And at that point, what I'll do too, because I need to do a final test fit, I'll mount the chassis for the Milberts, all the other stuff. So at that point, it'll really start to look a lot more like that. So thank you very much again for watching. Certainly appreciate it. Please like, and if you have not yet already, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. All right, I can live with that. So again, the objective here was to get the amps to lay flat, not rock back and forth, and get the fins to line up as good as possible. Now keep in mind, when I put it in the car, that I'm calling it the main plate, the piece of 1/8 inch that's hanging from the rear deck, that I try to get as flat as possible, but it's definitely not perfect. But I figure if these are gonna rock on a flat piece of granite, they're definitely gonna be off in the car. So again, the whole thing here was to try to get this lined up. So kind of bring you down. You can see they're much better. Obviously not, bolted down to the granite countertop, but you can see standing back from like this far, really can't even see the seams. So very happy with that. And once again, now everything lines up good, as I suspected it would, right? With these seams. And now we can work on the MDF. So back to our regular scheduled program. I wanted to get this proper before I started screwing around with the bottom. All right, let's get on the bottom.